Ever wondered how local politics shapes your everyday life? We the People Town Square helps you discover who's shaping your neighborhood and how decisions are made. We simplify the complex world of local politics and empower you with the knowledge you need to become a force for change. Join us in building a more informed community, one neighborhood at a time.
Hello, this is Dan Rogers. Today we're here with GLEN LYON. GLEN, welcome.
Hey, thank you, Dan. Thanks for having me on.
Why don't we talk about what some of the issues are affecting farmers today? What's your biggest issue that concerns you, whether it be at the local, state, or federal level?
Low commodity prices and then high input costs is our big problem out here today. And then water issues also too. Our water is going away from us.
Well, so if you've got high input costs, what do you think is the driving factor causing those input costs to go up?
I think some of these companies, they just take advantage of us farmers. Like a few years ago when the cotton prices went up, they all moved their prices up with the commodity prices, and then they stayed there. Then the commodity price of cotton came back down, and they don't come back down. It stays where it's at, or keeps. I mean, that's what I see.
Well, I think farmers have had the same issues from the beginning of time. It seems like, I grew up on a farm in Missouri, and we all complained about the same thing. Our input costs are too high, and the cost we receive for our product at the end of the year was never enough.
Right. Our big deal is today, say that today, cotton on the cash market, probably around 62 cents roughly. That's the same they're selling it for, I'm assuming, back in the 60s or 70s, with input prices way different than they are today.
So you have to make up for it in production.
Exactly. And you can't make up that much in production, in my opinion. Can't cover that much. You can't cover that much up with production for that low of a price.
So you have to farm a lot more acres and hope
that
the weather treats you right.
Right. Yeah.
So how do you have any ideas on how to fix that issue?
Well, we had a guy in office from starting in 2020 that he held China accountable with that new the farm program that he had got set with them, and when the other administration took over, they just kind of went away from that. But Trump had held China accountable, and we were pushing. I think the commodity prices are going to start going in the right direction. But this new administration will not hold anybody accountable. He's the only one to hold other people accountable for us farmers.
So does China produce a lot of cotton?
No, they buy a lot of our cotton at times, but I don't know about production. I think they're more moved into like the stuff for livestock, I think. But they do buy a lot of cotton, but they've started more into going into polyesters and buying from other countries. But I mean, Trump had us going in the right direction with his farm, with the trade, with the farm trade deal he had going, and he had it all set up perfect. And then it just, I guess, got thrown out the window, so to speak.
Well, I think what happens with China, if I'm not mistaken, is they import a lot of our cotton from, well, not only us, but Ethiopia and other places in the world. And then they turn that into fabric and then sell it back to us in the United States.
Exactly.
And I think what Trump did was when he put the tariffs on, that helped level the playing field a little bit. A lot of people don't understand the concept of free markets.
Exactly.
They misconstrue what Adam Smith talked about in his Wealth of Nations. And to me, your role as a government is to protect your people and your businesses. That's their primary role. They're supposed to protect our borders and protect our nation economically. And so traditionally, we would have tariffs on any product imported into the United States. And to me, I think they ought to just put a 20% tariff across the board on every product imported from the United States, period. Treat everybody the same, and that protects the businesses in your country. But you have free trade within your country, right? Within your borders.
Yes.
And then we can compete with other countries around the world as long as everybody's treated equally within the country. But what a lot of people don't understand, and it's conservatives and liberals both, they just don't understand how the world works. You know, other countries are like other businesses in town, right? So you can't give away and let them slaughter you and buy stuff and not have to compete on the same level that you do.
Right.
No, to me, it's a simple solution. I think it would work. I don't think it's been tried. But when they talk about these tariffs, they don't understand that all these countries are putting huge tariffs on us on the products that we export, right? And that's a problem. But we don't do the same to them. And all Trump is doing is saying, we're going to treat them like they treat us.
Yep.
And I think that's reasonable.
Absolutely. Absolutely. He's for the farmer, which is for the people. I mean, that's the way I look at it. He's big with the farmers, but he knows the people need the farmers. They might not know it, but they need the farmers, you know.
Well, everything we have at one place or another ends up coming from the farm, right?
Yes.
The clothes on your back, this cotton shirt that I'm wearing, from the straw that my hat's made out of, to the leather that our boots are made out of, comes from the farm. And what doesn't comes from petroleum, which is underneath your land, right?
Yes, sir.
So land is what's valuable. It can produce.
Yes,
it
sir.
Can produce cows. It can produce crops. So what do you all raise any livestock, or are you strictly row crop?
No, I'm just row crop. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yep, no livestock. No.
Mainly cotton?
Yes, mainly cotton. Yep. We grow some peanuts out here, some wheat, and a little bit of corn and milo, but mainly cotton is our backbone here in our area.
So how do you keep the moles from getting those peanuts?
Say that again.
How do you keep the moles out of the peanuts?
Yeah. No, in today's world on the peanuts, I mean, there's a lot of stuff to help you with all that kind of stuff, you know. So, but they don't mess with them too much because they're not roasted and salted already, so they won't mess with them.
I don't know. I raised some peanuts one time. I went out there and I was getting ready to harvest them and they were all gone.
Yeah.
That was a very sad day.
Yeah. So
I understand the problems that farmers face, and it's bad enough that we face the economic problems, but it's the weather and Mother Nature we have to fight. And if you have a bad year, it can wipe you out.
Yes, yeah. In today's world, I remember when I was a kid, my dad would always say you could make up the next year. If you lost or had a bad crop, you can make up. You can't do that in today's world. You have a hiccup, you're probably not going to make it. It's just because the cost is just too much up there.
Well, and if somebody has a bad year and they have to get out, then they have to sell out to the big corporate farmers, and they can borrow money on Wall Street at a lot cheaper rates than we can.
Right. Yes.
So that's a problem. And then again, that goes back to not treating everybody the same. They're able to get a better deal, and they have influence, and they can manipulate elected officials to give them benefits that we can't get.
Right.
So it kind of goes back to our political system and how we have.
And as you already know, is with farmers, we track pretty far. Businesses, gins, chemical companies, like us, and we employ people. I mean, these rural communities, it all wraps through the farmer, and it goes deep. Even like us, I'm 60 miles west of Lubbock, out here in the middle of nowhere, but I guarantee you the car dealerships know in Lubbock when there's good crops made out here in my part of the world and when there's not. I mean, it trickles a long way with the farmer. Starting with the farmer, it trickles a long way, as you well know.
Yeah, I would say the farmer is definitely, it's the foundation of our economy.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
It's not high tech. You
Right.
can't eat a computer, right?
Exactly. Right.
You can
Yeah.
use a computer to make you more efficient in growing crops. So it
Right.
has value. But at the end of the day, it's the farmer and the stewards of the land that are the most important people in America.
Right. But in our world today, it's farming's changed so much. It's educating the general public about what we deal with. They drive by and see big machinery at my place and stuff like that. Well, that don't mean that machinery is paid for. I mean, it's expensive machinery, and we get bad rap. We have to have that machinery to operate, but that don't mean that that's all paid for. I mean, it's most of it's mortgaged, and I mean, I'm paying on it just like somebody pays on a car payment or something. They just don't realize, the scale. I wish we could educate our public more on the farming.
Yeah, I think that's good point. I was thinking about that the other day. It used to be, if you look at when the big fortunes were made in America, they were made in the 1800s. But we had a different financial system, right? We didn't have to, people were able to produce a crop or run their business, save money, and self-fund their expansion. But under our
Yes.
current system, you can't do that. You have to borrow money.
Right.
So who's coming out on that deal?
Right.
It's not the farmer and it's not the consumer. So the banks are making all the money on the farmer, on every business person just about, and that's a problem. I think we've got a flawed system. It doesn't make sense.
Right.
Because the value of your money keeps deteriorating. And, today, I guess the Fed dropped the Fed funds rate by 0.5 point. Like that's going to do anything. But it's about central control, central planning of our economy. And so everybody hinges on every word out of the mouth of the Federal Reserve, which I think is all smoke and mirrors and means basically nothing, because all they do is follow the 2-year Treasury. That's all the Fed does. And but everybody thinks that they're important, and they're not. I mean, do you have any ideas on that?
No, I totally agree with how you put that. I mean, that's, like us as farmers, where we're borrowing money, that 0.5 point, I mean, that means something, but I mean, we need it to come down more because we're paying double interest right now than what I paid probably 4 or 5 years ago. I mean, and that's another thing. You look in these last few years of this administration we're dealing with, I mean, they want to point to everybody else, but that doubling of that interest rate makes it really hard on us farmers to, that are operating. It's tough, especially with what it costs today to do it. Those interest rates doubling it, that's a big expense in our operations.
Yeah, that's probably a big part of your input costs.
Yes, sir. Yeah, it's huge. Yeah.
So if we could get that down, that would help.
Right.
Well, to me, it ought to be the market sets the rates.
Yes.
I don't think interest rates make any difference in the large scheme of things. If you had the economy running as it should, which means no government interference, the market will take care of everything. And if you think you can't make money by producing cotton, maybe you'll make the decision to go to something else. Maybe you raise milo, or maybe you raise wheat, or maybe you raise millet or something, or sow it in grass and raise cows, right?
Right.
You would, as an individual farmer that knows your land and your water, you would make that decision because you're not going to harm your ability to produce income.
Right.
But with central planning, I believe it skews the markets, and interest rates don't matter because if you believe in the future, you're going to borrow money. If you think you're going to make money at 15%, you're going to borrow money. But if you think you can't make any money at 1%, you're not going to borrow.
Right.
So my point is interest rates don't matter if the market was left alone. But now that we've gotten into central planning with the Federal Reserve, people perceive that it's important. That creates all kinds of problems. and
Right.
people start believing things that aren't so. Right.
Right. Right. They've brainwashed a lot of people.
But maybe we'll come up with a better system or get back to one that worked.
Absolutely. It's time. I'm hoping enough people are paying attention. It's time. It's a huge, I tell my boys all the time, this is the biggest election that of a lifetime to me, the way I look at it.
Well, do you think the people in your community are going to show up and vote?
And I sure hope so. I mean, everybody I talk to, I sure push that deal because, like I said, man, I think this is one that, we pushed and it's bad. But if it goes that we give them another 4 years, we're in trouble. This has to change. This election is huge.
Well, I think the most important thing is to be involved in your local community. Now, as a farmer in a small town, you're probably the poster child for how communities should operate, because y'all probably go to your school board meetings and you probably know your county commissioners, and they're probably not doing really stupid things and wasting tons of money because they live in a community with real people, right? That show up at their commissioners meetings and their school board meetings.
Right. But just back to that same deal, we got to get in some of these cities and educate these people, not just on farming, just in general about how they've been brainwashed the wrong way. We've got to get in there and make them understand. I mean, I see more of it seem like we're getting there, but man, I hope we can get there before November. I sure do.
Well, I think it's kind of coming down, people say, oh, it's liberal versus conservative. It's black versus white. They're all trying to divide. But I think the real division is between rural and urban.
Yes.
The urban people have lost touch with reality. They're not grounded in how the world works and where everything comes from.
Right.
And when they lose touch with that and don't have that connection, it used to be that, when I was a kid, we'd have to go to Kansas City to see my city cousins, right? But they came to our farm and they had a concept of how everything worked, and let them milk the cows and feed the chickens and that sort of thing. But today, very few people get that connection. And I think we need to figure out.
I'd hate to even admit this. I think, we're a rural community. And I know back when I was a kid, we would for sure know this, but I would even be scared, even these small communities, if you go ask a kid where this milk comes from. I know in the city, a lot of them wouldn't know, but I think it's pushing out even further. And I hate to say that, but I think it's even pushed out into our rural communities that these kids aren't educated or taken to the farm enough, even though they live out in it, but they have no understanding of it. They've had me come to school and talk a couple of times, and you can tell these kids they're sheltered into, they don't really understand where all this stuff comes from.
Well, that's not a good situation. I think we need to figure out a way to get them out on the farm. Maybe they need to come out and hoe cotton for a few days while they're in school.
Exactly. I'm with you. I'm ready for that. I think that's what all these kids need to see. And then you get out in it and you see where it all comes from and how it all happens. Yeah.
Yeah. Make them understand that it's a lot of work and make them appreciate the clothes on their back. Doesn't come from Walmart,
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
So, no, I think you're onto something there. We'll have to put our heads together and see how we can't figure something out.
Let's do it. We got to get something going.
We
these young kids.
We could put some information on our We the People Town Square platform that we're rolling out. And what we're going to do with that, it's about education. It's about educating. I wanted to use it for my precinct chairs and help them engage their voters, but there's so many things more we can do with it. And we're going to educate people about the political process and how to emulate, small town communities. But maybe we could put some good courses on there about agriculture and where your food comes from. I think that'd be good, particularly even the older people,
Yes.
might find that interesting.
Yes, that'd be great.
Now, I noticed your banner back there. Is that, are you, you must be running John Deere equipment.
Yes, sir. I'm a big John Deere fan, and I don't know if you ever seen it. Did you see where Trump signed the guy's combine up Iowa or somewhere? Did y'all see that? Where
No.
he took his Sharpie and signed the guy's combine on the side, man. I wish I could get that done. That would be too neat.
That's pretty cool.
Yep. No, us farmers for Trump, man. If no doubt.
Hey, do you know any farmers that are supporting the other ticket?
No, sir. I don't know of one that I've ever talked to. And I've talked to a lot of farmers, and I can tell you the farming community's behind Trump. It's a pretty easy. He's always been for the farmer, and he's just a businessman. He's just a smart man. He's a smart man, and that's what we got to have back in office. We need some common sense up there to run this damn thing. Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. We were an international harvester, everything we had. When I was,
Did you? Yeah.
Yeah. But my dad didn't like John Deere. He liked McCormick Deering. That's what we had.
Yeah.
But it depends, I think, on what it's the dealer in your area that makes the difference on equipment.
Yeah. You see areas change. Out here it's green, and you'll drive north a little bit and it turns red. And I guess like you said, the dealerships kind of move that around. Yeah.
I had a cousin that had a big dealership up in Kansas. I think it was Manhattan, Kansas. He ran a huge John Deere dealership up there.
Yeah.
So I know a little bit about both of them. When I was a kid, we put on second largest steam engine show in the United States. And that was a big deal.
Yeah.
And it's still going.
Yes, sir. That's good.
We'd have antique tractor pulls. And
yeah.
I'd always win with my Farm All In.
There you go. Yep. I like the old antique tractors.
Yeah. Yeah. They were real tractors. They didn't have all these computers on them.
Right.
They didn't have the air conditioning and all that. We made fun of people with cabs, but now I'm like, that was stupid. We were just jealous because we couldn't afford them,
Exactly. Yeah.
But things change. But to be out there in that hot sun all day long, you better have it now.
Yeah.
So do you have any trouble finding help out there for your?
It's getting harder and harder all the time to find, I'm very lucky. I've got some really good quality help, but getting some older guys, and man, when you start thinking about the younger generation, man, it's getting scary to find good quality that people want to work on the farm and know how to do everything on the farm. Like you're sitting there talking about that technology and stuff, man. A lot of this stuff costs a lot of money. You got to have good quality people. It makes you really nervous if you don't own that machinery, and it's getting hard to find. That's another problem we have out. It's in the farming community. Help's going to become a big deal.
Yeah. Well, that's why you're supposed to have lots of kids, right?
Right. Yes, sir. I've got two twin 17-year-old boys, and I hope they come back to the farm someday. But Trump needs to get elected. If he wasn't elected, I probably wouldn't push him to come back to the farm. And I know that's sad to say, and I want my boys to come back to the farm.
Well, I do. Well, I think if we had the world running properly, farmers should be the wealthiest people there are, in my opinion, because they own the land and they're producing the food, and that's the most important thing.
Right. Safe food and very affordable food when you look at the big grand scheme of things. I mean, we're very lucky.
But I mean, to me, it's a national security thing, right?
Yeah.
So
yes.
Producing food is about national security. We should have plenty of stockpiles. We shouldn't be importing. I don't believe we should import any of the basic necessities food-wise, because if you do that, you put yourself at risk.
Right.
I mean, if the Israelis can blow up people's pagers, what could they do or some rogue nation do to the food supply?
Right. They could cause a lot of trouble in a short period of time. They could cause a lot of trouble.
Yeah. All right. So the other issue you said was water. Is the water?
Yes, sir. Yes, our water decline. Yes, we're on the Ogallala is where we get our water from, and it's just declining. It's just steadily declining over the years, and it's kind of pushed us to do different stuff. Full circles we used to have, now we have to back that off to half circles, and just to make, you know, to be able to water, we can't water what we watered in the past. So we had to really cut back on the acres that you really call it irrigated.
Well, do you think that it's due to people irrigating, or do you think it's just lack of rain?
Well, maybe some of both, but you know, we've been just through some droughts that we just can't get broke through, and we kept thinking we're going to break out of that. But that's, man, we've put a lot of pressure on that Ogallala. I mean, over the years, a lot of pumping, too much pumping, really. I mean, it's just because we haven't got enough help.
But technically, you can't destroy water, right?
Right.
So where does it go? I mean,
Well, like
we
us,
move around, but we don't get less water.
right.
And in time, I think the aquifers will recharge, but for a short period of time, it's just going to move around. But I think what the government's trying to do, and I don't know how you feel about this, is they want to control your water.
Oh yeah, they do. Yeah.
But
Yes.
I think it's a ruse to gain control of your land.
Yeah, they want to come after your water. There's no doubt. They're trying everything. They just want one door open. They get through one door to get, and they're just trying to go down the road. They try to open one door, making it seem like it's something very simple, but then before you turn around, they're going to be in something else in your back pocket trying to get. And I think that's where our government right now is doing.
Well, I think they've pretty much taken over the water in Kansas, and I'm concerned that they're going to try to pull the same stunt here in Texas.
Oh yeah.
I guess what I'm saying is I produce the producer. I trust the producer way more than I do the government. And I think the fact is you can't destroy water. And I think they're trying to scare people, because you could probably drill deeper. It's going to cost you more, right? But there's another aquifer underneath that Ogallala.
Yes.
But it's expensive to go get.
Right.
So I guess what I'm saying, we're not going to run out of water, but it might make your food a little more expensive.
Yes.
And that's the way it should be.
Right. But no, you're right. They're scaring people into doing stuff that they're doing a good job of it.
Yeah. Well,
and I feel like I know here in Texas, I can speak for a lot of landowners and water owners. They'll have a fight on their hands. I mean, when it comes down to it, it's a little bit of it already going on. But the Texas people will stand up and fight. That's one thing I will say. They'll fight for their land and their water rights. That's what they will fight for that.
Well, I hope so. Well, Glenn, it's great to visit with you. And is there anything you'd like to tell the voters they need to do before we jump off?
No, just vote Donald Trump. Farmers for Donald Trump. Get out to the polls and go get after it. We've got to get him back in office.
I think what Glenn's saying is if you eat, if you wear clothes, or you're a farmer, vote for Donald Trump.
Amen.
All right, Glenn, appreciate you.
All right. Yeah, thank y'all.
We'll be talking to you soon.
Sounds good.